Hello, and thank you so much for being here for the Magic is Real podcast. My name is Shannon. I am a psychic medium, and I host this podcast where I interview near death experiencers, mediums, and people who have had interesting spiritual journeys. And they come here to share their insights. So, thank you for being here. I'm excited today to have Courtney Dawson, who is an internationally renowned evidential psychic medium. She studied at the Arthur Findlay School where I have studied on Zoom, but it is my bucket list to go there and study there. It is the premier place to study for mediums. And she's a working professional medium. So I'm really excited to have her here to talk about spirituality and talking to dead people. Courtney, thank you so much for making yourself available today.
Thanks for having me on the show, Shannon. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Me too. I follow you on the Instagram. I'm just, again, yeah, just making sure we're recording because Zoom has made some changes. I follow you
Yeah.
on the Instagram. I love your content. And you really resonated with me. So first, I'd like to speak with you about this whole journey for you. When did it start for you? What was your childhood like? Did you have spirituality in your life? Were you a natural born medium? Did you study? Tell me everything.
Oh, I'll tell you everything. Where do I start? It feels like it's just always been there.
Yeah.
So uh, I think I've always had an awareness of spirit from the time I was born because my earliest recollection was maybe about 2 years old. And I would see spirit people, but I didn't know they were spirit people because they look just as real as you and I, right? And I grew up in a Christian home. Parents were very religious. They were elders in the church. Went to Sunday school, had went to a Christian private school, very much heavily influenced by that. So the doctrine and the religion was very much about angels, demons, light, dark. That was it. And there was no discussion about really these experiences that I was having. And it was I don't even know how to say except that it was really uh, a confusing and lonely time, especially growing up, because I didn't really understand some of the experiences because I would say things like, for example, a story that is true. It was maybe about 4 or 5 years old. We lived in this massive house and we had 4 floors. And I had walked up the stairs, went into my bedroom that I shared with my sister, and there was a boy and a girl there, and they were hiding behind the headboard. And I was talking to them, playing with them, etc. And then they were just gone. And I was so startled. I looked, I couldn't find them. And I was crying to my mom. And I'm like, Mom, where did they go? My mom runs upstairs because she thinks something's like terrible happened. And she's like, Courtney, there's nobody here. So I had like multiple experiences like that where I would seek understanding or guidance or comfort, but nobody was seeing or feeling what I was. So that always made me feel like I was different. I was at times, Shannon, I even felt like I was tainted. I really did. And so it really kind of messed with my head, my self esteem, had anxiety my entire life as long as I could remember. And not until I started my formal training did I understand that that anxiety wasn't just because of the lack of awareness or understanding to explain what was happening to me. Because when we don't understand our experiences, our first like human instinct is fear, right? And so when I started the formal training with my mentor, she'd explained it to me as this. And so this is kind of like a little educational little tidbit here. So when we are working with our mediumistic powers of awareness, our work field is in an expansive state, right? Think of it as like an umbrella, it's wide open. So when the spirit, they don't have a body anymore, but they still have a soul, and that soul still has an etheric field, it blends with ours. And so their energy touches ours and it affects our central nervous system, which runs up and down the spine. So then we start to have these physiological, reactions, responses, rapid heart rate, anxiousness, pins and needles, tingling, like all of the symptoms people get with anxiety. And when I had that awareness of what was actually going on, I go, oh my God, this makes total sense. But that wasn't until my early 30s. So I really felt like, and I really suffered because I didn't know who to talk to. I mean, when I was like, I'm 44 today, by the way, and I'm not dishing for a
Happy
happy birthday.
birthday. No, I
Thanks. I'm not
forgot
just,
that. Yeah.
I'm just dating myself, right? So like when I was growing up, we didn't have internet. We didn't have social media. I had no freaking resources. So it was really like a lonely time, a confusing time. And so I struggled with just trying to cope, get through the day, and then kind of fast forward, still having lots of experiences. And honestly, some of them weren't all pleasant with the world unseen. A lot of spiritual people think it's all love and light. I wish that were the case. I just didn't have that experience. It was when I started the formal training and using spiritual protection that I was no longer encountering those type of experiences. I still get some weird stuff that happens, but I'm more equipped to deal with that. But it was a really interesting time. And so, kind of fast forward my early 30s, it was when I was 30, actually, I went through a very tumultuous divorce. And I hadn't told my ex-husband now at the time that I was seeing so-called dead people. He always knew I was really intuitive. How do you know these things? How, like, I knew when he was not coming home where he was, and I would see an address, I'd know where he was, and I'd go track his ass down.
Wow.
Now, would I do that now with my husband now? No, because he's loyal and trustworthy. But I knew this guy was a shyster. This is why, okay? He brought the cray cray out of me.
Yeah.
And certain things where I just knew he was doing things, and then I was able to verify the information. He's like, "You got no proof." And I said, "I don't need it, but I will get it." And he would just be caught in his tracks all the time. And it was really my intuitive abilities that helped me get a lot of information, which was really helpful because I ended up leaving that marriage, which was the best thing for me. So once I let him go, I realized I got to get my shit together. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
You are allowed to say that.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. You can. It's fine.
I just use my colorful language like on my show, so I forgot to ask my phone.
No, that's
But
okay.
yeah, so fast forward like just a couple of years, I went on this real journey, deep dive into getting to know Courtney. Because I had babies young, I was married young, and my whole life was wrapped up. My whole identity was wrapped up in being mom and wife. Well, the dynamics shifted really quickly, and my intuitive abilities were coming in hot, but I didn't know where to go. So I had a friend who knew a lady, beautiful lady, who was a Reiki master. She's like, go for a session, go for a session. And then it really kind of trickled from there. So I ended up having these incredible experiences when I would go for Reiki. I had never used a tarot deck, oracle card deck. I'd never channeled a message from spirit. I never did any of that stuff. I didn't even know what those words meant. I didn't have the language. And I was having these like incredible experiences when I would go to her house, and then she'd have these like gatherings that were like in a circle format, not a mediumship development circle, but more of like a mystical, intuitive circle. And I was reading for people, and it was psychically. Maybe it was being inspired by spirit. I do think it was psychically though. And they're like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like, no clue, no idea. I was reading cards, didn't know the books, had no idea. And it was something within me. It was so deep of a resonance that I knew I needed to pursue this further. And while I was having the Reiki, there was these experiences with the world unseen where I'm like, you guys are back. You guys are back. What am I doing? And funny thing, I had a girlfriend who had told me about this spiritualist church. And spiritualist is different than a spiritual. So spiritualist is a religion, it's an organized religion, it's a recognized religion. And it's a religion, philosophy, and a science. And I'm actually an ordained spiritualist minister. And she's like, "Yeah, I've gone to this church and there's mediums on the stage giving readings." I'm like, "What? Okay, whatever," ignored it. But then I had another friend. She never told me the name, nothing. And then I had this other friend, this couple, who had lost a brother suddenly under tragic circumstances. And they had said they went to this place in Surrey, which is not far from my house, and there was mediums on a stage giving messages. I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like what my girlfriend told me." And then the voices started coming in. "Courtney, you need to go check it out." I was too scared to say, Yeah, I'm hearing voices in my head and they're telling me that I need to go to this place. What's the name? I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, the voice kept talking to me, and then, which was spirit. I ended up taking 9 months to freaking end up going there. Slow learner, but I got there. And long story short, I ended up going to a message night. And I said to my girlfriend, hey, do you want to come with me here? I'm really feeling drawn to go to this place for message night. She said, Courtney, that's the place I've been telling you about for years. I'm like, stop it. She goes, yeah, I'll be there. And then I had this full blown flooding, um, like the dam broke of abilities just come flying through. And so I'm waiting outside. It's like June, it's warm here in BC, and I'm standing outside in lineup waiting to get in. I've never been, I don't know what to experience. I'm literally clueless, but I know that this voice is telling me I got to go. And so, but I felt safe. I felt like I could trust it. So I did. And while I'm waiting for my girlfriend to come, there is a man and I can see him. But I knew that he was a spirit. Before, when I was young, I couldn't tell the difference, but I knew that I knew this was a spirit. It was really interesting. And I could see him objectively, which means outside of the head, not in my mind's eye. And then he starts talking to me telepathically. He's walking behind a lady and then a young girl, like not a little girl, but maybe 14, 15, like that. And they're walking across the street and they're getting in lineup. He says, that's my family. I need you to give a message to them. I'm like, WTF, what is going on? Am I like losing it or what? Right. So I'm like, nobody, like, you got to go. Like, I cannot do this. And I'm texting my girlfriend, like, where are you? What's going on? Like, I'm starting to panic now, thinking, why am I here? Well, long story short, get inside. There's an incredible medium. She's also a psychic artist. And so a psychic artist is somebody that can tune into the energy of spirit and then draw a portrait in their likeness. Now, most psychic mediums that are psychic artists don't get the message, but she does. And in the time that I was there, she explained how it works. So she had actually pre-done the portrait. So she connected with spirit. They said, this is who we are. She did like, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them. Turns out he's one of them. I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, what's going down? But he was the only portrait that never got claimed that night. Everybody who got a message got a portrait, but nobody got the message. And he kept saying, I was the one. Then the trippiest thing to happen, Shannon. I was like, oh my God, did somebody spike my water? Because I had a water bottle. I made sure the cap was on because I was seeing people coming out of the wall, like full on people, just like I see you. I later found out that was a portal. And I could literally see them coming through. It was wild. And I closed my eyes, put my head down. My girlfriend's like, are you okay? And I said, no, dude. There's like people coming out of the wall. And I'm like, I think somebody spiked my drink. Like I'm tripping out. She's like, dude, your water's fine. Like, what are you talking about? So we leave. And the guy would not, like, he was so insistent. He wouldn't leave me alone. And he's like, you need to give them a message. I said, only if they cross the street with us. There's like this massive parking lot. They do. And I said, no, I can't. Only if they're going to park beside me. Sure as shit. They park beside me. And this lady has got the same freaking car, make, model, color as mine. And then she's got the little remote starter. Click, click. I'm like, oh dear God. My friend's like, what is wrong with you? You're like never acting like this. Are you okay? I said, dude, there's this dead guy here. He's been with me since your late ass, before your late ass showed up. And he wants me to give a message. She's like, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, but I have to. So, and FYI, guys, don't go up to people in parking lots, okay? Don't do that. We want to be ethical, right? But I did. And I said, hi, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but are you here tonight to receive a message from your dad? And the lady goes, yeah. And I said, and that would be your grandpa? And she goes, yeah. And I said, but you didn't get a message tonight, did you? And they both go, no. And I said, I would normally not do this. I said, but would you mind if I gave you a message? They were just all ears and all excited. And I said, okay. So I did ask for permission, which was good. And then I said to them, he's telling me you need to go back inside because his portrait is there. There's a sketch of him. I said, and I'll just wait for you guys here. So they go inside. My friend's like, Courtney, what is going down? I said, I don't know, girl. Like, we're just going to ride this and see what happens. So they come back. It is him. And from what I was seeing to the sketch, the art portrait, so similar, so similar. So I gave the message and they were like, thank you so much. That's exactly what we needed. And it was like, poof, I knew in that moment why I was here, why all of those experiences that I had in my entire life came and why they happened and why everything came to this moment of realization, why I was here. And then it was this excitement, relief. Like I didn't feel like I was crazy. I didn't feel like I was tainted. I knew that I had a purpose and I knew that everything just fell into place. It was like the pieces of the puzzle coming together. And I just knew that I needed to get my head wrapped around what this was all about. And so I did. I went back to that church. This was on a Thursday. I went back on Sunday because having that communication, they just started swarming me almost like bees, but not in a bad way. But they're like, okay, she's open. She's another channel. She can connect to our loved ones and give our messages. Well, I didn't have, balance. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't have any discipline because I didn't know any of them. So I went to that church waiting for them to open on like an hour early before they opened. One of the ministers came out and I said, can you help me? This is what's going on. I don't know what to do. So she just helped me to clear ground and close off my energy and use some spiritual protection. So much better. It was like a couple minutes. And then I started attending that spiritualist church, understanding not only about mediumship, but spiritualism as a religion, a science. And it just fascinated me. And I felt like I was home. There was something in my soul that just resonated. And I never found that, Shannon, when I was growing up, attending church in the private Christian school, which is why I never raised my kids in the Christian church because it didn't align with me, right? And everything just kind of started from there. I said to my mentor, later mentor, I said, I need to get some help with this. Like I know I'm meant to do something with this. So I went for my first medium reading. I never had a psychic tarot, nothing. Like I again didn't have the language. People go, are you nuts? No, dude, I had nothing. I didn't know about it. So I went for a reading. It was profound. And then I said, I'd really like to do something with this. I know I'm meant to help people. It's not about becoming famous and going on TV and all of that. At that point, honestly, I never even watched any of those shows. None. Never read a book, nothing. Like just a newbie, you know? And she's like, I teach a development circle. I'll put you on the wait list. And she's like, they usually don't open up a spot, but I will put you on it. And I said, okay, cool. So I said to Spirit, I'm like, if it's meant to be, I'd love to get in on that. And I got in. I got notification like a month later, and Circle started in September. And then I sat in Circle for 7 years and have just dedicated my life to developing, training, understanding my abilities, and now helping others do the same because it's interesting that there's so many of us that have these experiences, not even people that are like myself who grew up in a religious home. But there's such a lack of understanding in the spiritual community about so many of the experiences that we have as empaths, intuitives, psychic mediums. And I experienced this with my mentees and through my school, the Connected Spirit School, where people come in and they're like, Courtney, I'm having these experiences and they're freaked out, just like me. And I said, well, hold on, you don't need to be freaked out. It's the education, it's the training, it's the knowledge that will remove that. And in its place, fear comes. Or sorry, fear leaves and peace comes, right? And this is why I just love to educate people about mediumship, whether you want to do it professionally or not. Everybody benefits from developing mediumship. In my opinion, I truly believe because we are all souls having this human experience. In our innate nature, we have the ability and the capacity to be able to communicate with the spirit because we were spirit first before we hopped into this meat suit. It's truth. So it's only our mind that needs the formal training. The spirit already recognizes the language of spirit. the inner knowing, the sensing, the intuiting. And I see it change lives every single day, from the private one-to-ones that I do to the gallery readings, my classes, my workshops, my mentorship programs. I see it change lives every single day. And it's because the power of the spirit is something that we all are connected to. And when our human has that awareness and makes that connection with the other world, your life has forever changed, because your views on your lived experiences shift, because you realize there is no such thing as curses or punishments or bad things happen to you. You look at them as soul lessons and opportunities for really the growth and expansion of your own soul. And it takes you from a place of victimhood to empowerment. And that shift is massive, massive. It shifts the way you look at yourself, how you feel about yourself. It builds your confidence. You know you're never alone, even if you don't have a big social group, or maybe you don't have any close family members or any that are still living. You know that the world unseen's got your back 150%. And that gives you the courage and that additional strength and oomph to keep going and pursuing your dreams, because we realize there's no such thing as mistakes or failures. It's opportunities for growth. We realize that at the end of the day, nothing can ever damage, tarnish us, or break us, because we're these eternal beings. And so we replace fear with peace and love and joy. And those are all emotions that are at a high vibrational frequency, a resonance. And when we can live our life in that state, we create momentum, magnetism, and magic literally happens in our life. And we can still have difficult situations, but we are so better equipped, Shannon, to deal with them, to maneuver through them with more ease and grace, because our understanding has really been enlightened.
That was great. I want to thank you for bringing that up, because that's the thing. I just was talking about that yesterday with a friend, that all of these things that happen, I know now are not happening to me, they're happening for me. And that really helps
Mm-hmm.
me go through my life knowing that, oh, there's a reason I'm having this dynamic with this person. So it doesn't feel personal anymore. It feels like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, I recently had a friend, just 20-year friendship, showed up at his house. He'd been drinking and just unleashed a fury on me that hadn't, it was like out of nowhere. And instead of getting like, I mean, I was upset to the point where I was like, our friendship's done. But I went, I see what's happening here. Everything he just said to me is a reflection of my own inner critic. You talk too much. You're too much.
Mm-hmm.
You just are a lot to deal. And it's like, I don't feel that way about myself, but there have been times in my life. He's like, you're a mess. And I was like, wow, I haven't been a mess in 20 years. But it's like, I see, it's my old stuff that's still circulating around, and he's reflecting that back to me. So he's just there to be he's like basically a prop. He's basically a character in the play, just to feed back to me all of these negative core beliefs that I had, that I feel like I've done a lot of healing about. But I was like, oh, apparently they're still there, because somehow out of nowhere, I'm just getting bombarded with these old stories that thought I'd worked through. And I just said, wow, that's so interesting. It's like, that friendship's done, but also, okay, I see what I need to look at. And I think that's fascinating, that that's why we're here, right? So from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective and from what you've learned, when we cross over, or there's the life review, whatever, but why do we come here into these, into this dense reality and into these bodies? Like, what are we doing here?
I think all of our reasons are so different, because we are all different souls. Yes, we come from the same source creator. And I explain it as we are like a facet of the diamond, right? So, a facet of us incarnates for various reasons. And universally, it is at its core all about our soul coming to learn, to grow and evolve. And this dense physical earth plane is the hardest one out of all of the dimensions. So those that choose to incarnate into physical form are badass. They are brave. They are courageous AF, because this place is not for the faint of heart. It's really not. I mean, we experience physical illness and physical pain. We experience death. We experience grief. We experience all of our inner emotions, doubt, judgment, fear, that inner critic, right? All of those things. And why do we experience it here? Because there's a part of us that needs to learn acceptance and tolerance and forgiveness and self love and compassion and all of these different, I'll call them like virtues, if you will, but they're soul lessons that we can't acquire anywhere else in the other galaxies, dimensions. We just can't. And so when we come here, and this is my understanding as of right now, and I feel like, and I just make a statement about that. I feel like what I share is based on my experience up to this point. So, ask me again in a year or 5 years, my answer may change because I don't get my answers from a textbook. I give my responses based on my lived experiences, if that makes sense. So my understanding is that before we incarnate, we meet with our soul group, our council. So our soul group is the people that we choose to incarnate with within the same lifetime, and our council are our guides, ascended masters, inspirers, helpers. And so we decide what lessons that we want to have, right? Now people go, Courtney, you can't tell me that I chose to experience the death of a child or a spouse or a good friend, or I chose to die young, right? I mean, and those are some pretty sad, heavy things, right? And I mean, as mediums, we deal with this in our readings every day, right? I will say to you, yes, yes, your soul did, not your human. There's a difference. Your soul's the part of you that is timeless, ageless, and eternal. Your human is temporary. That's it. But the soul is what continues to exist beyond bodily death. So we choose all of these soul lessons and then we incarnate so we can acquire these lessons and these tools that will help us when we return home to spirit. And perhaps we may choose not to incarnate into the physical form on the earth in our next incarnation. Maybe we decide to not incarnate and to continue and evolve in the spirit, or we want to go to different galaxies and dimensions. Maybe we don't want to incarnate into the physical form. Maybe we want to be a star being or a star or a particle. Like God knows what there is out there, right? I mean, our human minds, we're so limited to what is truly out there, right? I mean, I've had a lot of experiences and I know for a fact we are not the only life form. I can guarantee you there's more than just the human and the spirit or dead people. And I don't like calling them dead people. I'm going to get
They're
a
not
bumper
dead.
sticker made. They're not dead. They're still people with no bodies. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
clarify that, right? But I think we do choose absolutely to come here because some of us have decided to take on that role. Is like you look at in some of the like Celtic religions and stuff, they talk about, or they call it about it, her worship. I've actually just been reading about this. This is like a religion that goes back 30,000 years before Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of that. And they would worship the feminine. And it was very interesting for me when I was seeing this, how and reading this, how when we think about that energy and we come into this physical form, that at our core, there is this spark within us that knows all things, but yet it's the mind that needs that remembering. So when we come here, our mind is also remembering what the soul innately knows. But going back to her religion, there is like the maiden, there's, the mother, there's the crone. And so I feel like sometimes too, we take on these roles to help inspire and lead others. And if you look at some of the world's greatest leaders, and I'm not talking about politicians, by the way, I don't even want to talk about politics after this last weekend,
Yeah.
but that was pretty intense. But if we look at the crone is somebody who has experienced so many difficulties and hardships, but yet has overcome them with ease and grace and then inspires others through her wisdom and her teachings and her vulnerability. her capacity to love her wounds, to self-care, the soul, the body, to hold space for others while he or she or they allow their soul to find its space within time to really evolve and grow into its full capacity, its fullest expression. And so when I look at the crone, I go, these are the ones that people go to for insight, wisdom, and guidance, but they've had a rocky go, but they have this resilience within, and that's the power of the spirit. It really is. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Completely. I love all of that. I really appreciate everything that you shared, and I completely agree about about it all. I'm on the same page. It is hard to tell people your soul chose this because people don't understand. They can't.
Yeah.
We can't relate to being a being where there's no good or bad. We can't relate to there being no value put on good or bad on the other side, where it's all just peace and love and gentleness, and we're all
Yeah.
good. Even if something horrible happens to you down there, we're good up here. You're not dead. And we see the pain and suffering firsthand. We feel it. It hurts
Mhm.
so much. Grief hurts so much. And I think that's why I don't say it often, but I know it. Like I'll do a reading and I'll think I know exactly why this happened. I'm not going to tell you that your child took their life because you needed to learn this or that, or he needed to learn this or that,
Mhm.
because that doesn't help. But I know I'll feel that from them. Like, this was the arrangement. This needed to happen. You chose it not to, because it sounds like you're blaming. And when someone's in grief, you can't go there. But it's really,
No. No.
but it really, have that understanding of that when we're up there, or not up there, just in the other dimension of consciousness. Coming here is a snap of a finger. It's the blink of an eye. So it doesn't seem daunting to say, yeah, let me just pop down there for a minute, have this experience, pop right back, because for us, we might live 100 years. So we're dealing with that pain for all of those years, every day slogging through. And our soul self is like, this is great. We did our work, but it's not great when you're here. So, but I think it's consistent across the board with my near-death experiencers and mediums that this is something that we understand to be true. So, I appreciate that you mentioned that, because it's so hard to understand in
It
this
is. And I
paradigm. Yeah.
absolutely, and I'll just share something, before we're mediums, we're human first. And I say that a lot, and people go, well, we're souls first. Yeah, we're soul, human, and then medium, because medium is the middle person between the physical and the spirit, right? But in our humanness, we're vulnerable. We experience all of these terrible things like grief. And it is terrible. It sucks. We don't get to bypass that experience. And if anybody's followed me on socials, they know that I've talked about my daughter who is stillborn. And I mean, I was suicidal, like legit, I wanted to die. And there were a couple of times I was pretty close to taking my life. I couldn't cope. It was horrific. And she'd visited me a couple times. I didn't know that that was mediumship. I didn't know that was spirit communication, but I knew what was happening was real because I was 18 at the time. So this is like 26 years ago. I was with my first husband. I didn't know. And I just remember sitting on my bed crying and crying and crying to her. And then I saw her clairvoyantly. And she looks like my daughter now, who's alive, who's almost 24. Can't believe that. But this little girl, she presented a little bit older, like maybe 18 months, 2 years, and she was on a wooden swing, little, plank of wood with some rope, this beautiful blue dress. Funny, I can remember exactly what she looked like. But you asked me what I did yesterday, I'd be like, I have no freaking clue. Let me go check my agenda, right? So when you have these spiritual experiences, it's imprinted within your cell memory, your body, your DNA, everything. You retain that, right? And so she had said to me, don't be sad, mommy. I'm okay. Don't worry about yesterday. And her and I ended up having communication. Again, I didn't know it was channeling. I didn't know any of that. And, I was fresh out of high school. I had those high school binder full with lined paper. And so she would talk to me and I would write. And it was like poetry. Poetry was never my thing. Just not. I was always good in English. I always got straight A's. But that kind of language and what she was saying was not my lingo. So I knew that there was intelligence behind it. And I still kept it today. And some of the writings that she gave me or channelings, I read that at her funeral. It was incredible. And then I had no communication with her for probably like 19, 20 years. People are like, well, you're a medium. You don't experience grief. Stop the train. Yes, I do. Remember, I'm a human first. And we all hurt, we all bleed, we all feel the same way, right? And it's just recently that her and I are having more of an open communication. And she's actually given me signs now of her presence. And it's so cool. It's so cool. But yet, does that replace her being here? No, not at all. But I do know why she passed to the spirit. And it was a lesson for me, not her. And that lesson was brought to me very, very quickly because before I was pregnant with her, and I'm going to be really honest because I don't like to pretend I'm like holier than thou, but before I had her, I was a teenager. I was a little shit and used to party. I'll leave it at that. Did a lot of not so good things, right? Partying, not healthy things. And I remember saying, oh, I just can't wait till the baby's born and, I can have a party. Because I made sure I didn't smoke, drink, nothing. I ate healthy, exercise. Like I was so excited. I wanted to be the best, healthiest, you know, like little oven for her to grow in. Right. And then before she passed, I remember, oh, I just can't wait to go have a glass of wine. Oh, I can't wait to go have a night out with the girls. Oh, I can't wait to go party. Well, you know, I the lesson was is if she had stayed, I probably would have gone back to being a person who was making unhealthy choices. And so what an incredible gift she gave me, truthfully. And I can say that now, almost 26 years later.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's pretty intense, pretty intense. So yeah,
And
there when
that's,
I can say that firsthand. So when people go, you can't say that. Well, I can
yeah.
because I know that's why it happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's one of my best friends just lost her baby at 5 days. So I've been on that journey, vicariously, unfortunately, but it is, and that's not to get grim, but it's to acknowledge that part of our job too as mediums is not just to bring through messages, it's also to hold space for people's grief. And
Absolutely.
it's a huge part of the job when we talk about ethics it's and responsibility when you're giving a reading is really being honoring that human grief. And when someone says, I just lost a brother, not going, oh, he's in a better he's in a better place. It's saying, I am so sorry. What a profound loss. That must
Hmm.
hurt so much. And because it still does, and it doesn't change. So I think that's really something. I'm glad we talked about that because it is so magical and cool to see that. For example, yesterday I saw a headline that said Shannon Doherty dead, and I just was like, I don't like that. I don't like that. First of all, it's insensitive to her family and friends, but also she's not dead. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I know that's my belief and not everyone feels that way, but it's just it feels so, sensationalist and so impersonal and she isn't dead. She's still very much alive in a different form. And so I just don't like that terminology either. It's just it's so harsh and it's just I don't know, it struck me. I really thought about that for a while. I almost did a video about it. I was like, it's just the way they say it. So the beauty is that yes, we do understand that life continues just in another form. Just um, we're all. It's like Laurel and Jackson said, we're all here putting on a play, and at the end, we're going to meet up backstage, which is beautiful. But it can be really hard in the meantime, which is why people come to mediums, right? And
Yeah.
I always tell my clients in the beginning you're a medium too. We're all mediums. We're all souls. I'm just trained to understand their language. I've just sat daily in practice. And so I think it's interesting too that you started out, like you said, seeing people like they're there in the room. Um, and I don't see that. I just know, I just feel, I just
Hmm.
sense. And so I actually had a question about that because you talked about when you walked into that church, you saw people coming out of the walls. Did they
Hmm.
look like solid matter or were they
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
wild?
So I don't, so that's objectively. So there's clairvoyance, and there's two different kinds. There's subjective and
Yeah.
objective. So subjective means you're seeing pictures, scenes, or images like in your mind's eye. And when you're seeing objectively, you're seeing the person like outside of your physical eye, outside of the mind. So no, that's why I was like, I think I'm hallucinating, right? And I was having those experiences when I was young, but I didn't know any different because I just thought, oh yeah, they're there. But
Yeah.
when they would disappear, I'd get freaked out, right? But that was different as an adult. I think because I had more lived experiences and different things had gone on in my life where I was like, this is not normal. I think I'm actually hallucinating. But I wasn't because they were there. And when I closed my eyes and put my head down, I still remember it. And I put my head up, they're still there.
Yeah.
And they were just lined up waiting for their turn to blend with the medium so she could channel them. It was
Right.
so cool. But I don't see that way anymore.
That's what I was gonna ask you is, it seems like they were trying to get your attention that day,
For sure.
and then you set boundaries, and what did you ask them, "Please don't come to me in that way," or did they just kind of know, "Okay, we don't need to do that. She knows now that we're there."
So the ones that I was seeing on the platform, they weren't coming to me. I just had the awareness. I was
Right.
like wide open. But the gentleman in the parking lot, I'll call him the parking lot guy, he came to me and it was just like, what the heck is going on? So I certainly wasn't searching them out, but very quickly I did get into a circle and learned how to set boundaries with the world of spirit. And this is something that a lot of developing mediums and some so-called experienced mediums still don't grasp or incorporate into their practice or the work that they do with spirit. Boundaries are essential. So what boundaries are is you are respecting yourself as a sovereign being. You are saying, this is when I'm available to sit in the power, to meditate, to communicate with spirit. This is when I'm available to give a reading. Outside of that time, I still need to live my human experience. I'm not open to channeling 24/7. I don't want to be picking up on dead people that are with, my neighbors, for example. So, like, I walk my dog 4 times a day. And in our neighborhood, everybody has a dog and everybody knows everybody. I don't want to be wide open and I'm walking the street 4 times a day and I'm tuning into all the spirits that are with these people that I come in contact with every day. It's too much. It's
Right.
too much. And I'll explain that in a minute. So we basically we let spirit know this is when I'm available and this is when I'm not. I also let spirit know what type of people I want to communicate with and have contact with and who I don't because I was just like wide open and picking up a lot of garbage and people go, well, it's all love and light in the spirit. Oh yeah? Oh yeah? No, it's not. So people go, Courtney, how can you say that? Well, anything beyond physical death is spirit. Okay. And there is not just the spirit world, which is a world unseen that is a higher vibration, but yet coexists just in a parallel dimension. There are dimensions and galaxies and all kinds of stuff out there that I don't know if we'll ever have full awareness of until we transition to the spirit. I'm not sure. I don't have answers on that. Haven't done a deep dive into that. But what happens is when we transition to the spirit, our soul goes to a level in the spirit world that's at a same vibration or shares a vibrational resonance with us. So, for example, this question I get all the time. So, where would like Ted Bundy or Hitler be in the spirit world? I'm never going to bump into them. Or my loved one was murdered. Are they going to come in contact with their murderer when
Right.
that person crosses over? Those are legitimate questions I've been asked, by the way. And I say, you don't have to worry about that because they're going to be at a lower vibration, honey.
Mhm.
And the soul of your departed loved one is going to be at a higher. So in the spirit world, it's interesting because I grew up in a Christian home. They talk about the 7 different heavens. Well, it's actually the 7 different, I believe there's more, but what I've been told and taught is that there's 7 different realms or planes of existence. The one that's closest to the earth plane is the astral plane. And so when people start developing their mediumship or start meditating or start opening up the third eye, they're often connecting with that one first until they start inner healing and raising their vibration. So this is where when people close their eyes, they might see images that look unpleasant or encounter energies that are not friendly. Okay. So that is a real world. You know, people could call it negative, evil, call it what you want. I call it a vibration I don't want to play with. I don't want anything to do with it. Very unpleasant, right? But as you grow and you develop and you do your inner healing, you use your spiritual protection. When you meditate or expand your awareness and start to connect to the world of spirit, you just bypass all that garbage. Now, you, let's say, whatever level realm that you get to when you cross over, you always have an opportunity for your soul to grow and evolve on the other side. And you can, you know, there's going to be your guides and counsel that help with you. But my understanding at this time is that when you receive a certain, I'll say like enlightenment, there's opportunities for you to go to other realms, but you can't go until you're ready because it's not about being good or bad, but each realm is at a higher vibration. And so if you're not at that higher vibration, you can't integrate or assimilate with it properly. And so that's the purpose behind it. So like low vibe dudes, they can't go to a higher vibration because it would be too much for them. So think of it as like their vibration protects you from it, right? You're good.
Yeah.
But then higher vibration entities and souls can go down to lower realms, which often they do, and they're helping other souls achieve their lessons, do inner healing, right? And people go, well, don't you just have love and light and wings and airy fairy stuff once you die? No, you no longer have your physical issues because you no longer have a physical form, but your emotional, your intellectual, your mental stuff, that stuff still has to get dealt with. Because if it doesn't, if you choose to incarnate again, you may repeat those same patterns, have those same emotions that you need to process and heal, which means you're going to have more lived experiences to help you through that. But people on the other side have free will, just like people do here in the physical. So they will, with permission, they will ask their guides, angels, whomever on the other side to help them if they choose to get help. And they will help work with them at a soul level to heal and progress. But I will say, even people who have passed from sad circumstances, even if they've been responsible for their own departure, even though they still have inner healing to do, out of the thousands of readings, Shannon, that I've done, I've never had one say, I would wish that I didn't do that. And I'm stuck or I'm suffering or I'm in pain. I've never had that.
Yeah, I
I've never
haven't
had
either.
that because they're being held by the presence of love. And so they're in this very safe space where they can process that. And there are people, souls, guides, angels, inspirers. Think of them as like specialists. So, for example, if you break a leg, you're going to go see, I don't know, some kind of doctor. I had a shoulder issue. So I went and saw an orthopedic surgeon, right? So you have a heart issue, you're going to go see a cardiologist. Well, you got certain issues in the spirit, you're going to see a specialist, and they will help you resolve that if you ask and desire real help, right? Again, they're not going to interfere with your free will, just like spirit's not going to interfere with your free will here. They will guide and support you, but their capacity to support you is limited on your willingness to ask for help and then receive it.
I've heard that before. Matt Fraser explained it the same way. And I've never believed in heaven and hell. I believe in like different levels of vibration.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe that you're sent to be punished. It's just that you might have a lot of work to do where you
Yeah.
are. But I've also heard that the higher levels can come down to the lower levels, but the lower levels can't come up. And I wonder this too, as a medium, I've had readings where I can't connect. Like, maybe because you already have this relationship from the other side, but I'm getting nothing from that guy.
Could also be too, Shannon, though, that he hasn't forgiven himself.
Yeah,
Could also be that he's not ready to step forward and communicate. Now, there are spirits that will never come through in a reading.
that's
They
so
choose
validating.
to. People go, really? And I go, yeah. Now, think about it here in like a physical sense, in a human sense. There's some people who can talk forever, and there's some people that are really, really quiet. to hold a conversation with them is challenging. It's like pulling teeth,
Yep.
right? And there's some people that don't express themselves well. There's some people that'll never say, I love you, but yet they might build you that little stool or a shelf or take you out for dinner or, get you a little gift or some flowers to show their appreciation for you, right? They won't say it, but they'll show it in a different way. It's the same as spirit communication. Does that make sense? Right?
Yes.
So I have had, and actually just one of my mentees went through something very similar like 2 days ago. So this is fresh in my mind. I was sharing this with her and I said, but you can't put the responsibility on yourself to bring through certain spirits. As mediums, we're simply the intermediary, which is what medium means, right? So we only communicate with who chooses to step forward. That's it. I always tell my clients, I'm like the post lady. I deliver the messages. I don't know who's written them and I don't
Yeah.
know what's inside. I'm going to find out in real time. Now, for those that choose not to step forward in a reading, they, with this, like this gentleman, he may have some inner healing, self-forgiveness to deal with. He may not feel worthy of her forgiveness and wanting to communicate with her. He might feel uncomfortable. His stuff, not hers, right?
Yeah.
And another thing too, he may be communicating with her in different ways, signs, symbols, synchronicities, right? And so we got to think about them as, even though they are soul beings, they still have their personality, right? They still have their traits. And I did a reading yesterday and I had a girl that just emailed me back a comment about it. Really interesting reading. It was so interesting. It was, at first, I didn't know if the guy was like the father was joking or he was serious. This is the first thing he says to me. So I'm hearing him clairvoyantly. I can sense him as well. So predominantly I work clairaudiently and clairsentiently. So he comes in, I feel him. He's like, "Hey, I'm her dad," and I said, "Okay." And he's like, "Tell her I've fallen and I can't get up." I'm not getting it. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Would you just tell her already?" I said, and I had to sit there for a moment. She's looking at me. It's like, "You got to hang on for a second here, hang out for a minute, because I don't know if this guy's serious or not." He was like, he had this weird personality. I couldn't figure it out. So I sat for a minute, used my other senses, and I said, "Would you understand your dad to be in the spirit?" "Yes." "Would you understand him to have like a really kind of off the cuff, dry, interesting sense of humor?" She goes, "Yeah." "Would you understand him why he would say, 'I've fallen and I can't get up'?" She's like, "No." Well, she emails me today and wrong phone. I'll read this to you. So
Yeah.
bizarre because I was like, it kind of threw me off for a minute. I was like, what is this all about? So, for privacy reasons, of course, I'm not going to share her
Yeah.
name, but this is the message that she sent me. Um, Here we go. Okay. "Thank you again for connecting me with so many of my loved ones, especially my dad. I had an aha moment this morning." So, like less than 24 hours after the reading. "The joke my dad opened with, 'I've fallen and I can't get up.' I forgot in the moment that this was a running joke for years with me and my dad and my stepmom and their foster son." Well, and then named him, who is also in the spirit world. "We always made fun of that commercial together. And then a certain side of her family definitely has a twisted sense of humor," because it was just weird. It didn't feel like, ha
Yeah.
ha ha ha. I was like, what's this about? And then she just said, "This was just another assurance to me that I was definitely connected with my dad yesterday and that I'll always be." So, you know what I mean?
It's
Sometimes we're
wild.
like, they hold their personality, they'll say weird things or they won't talk, right?
Yeah.
And so as a medium, I always tell people, like, I don't summon the spirits. There's no 1-800 dial a heaven.
Yeah.
The spirit world has said in the trance states that they decide who's going to come forward and communicate. They've decided what they want to say. So as mediums, we don't need to stress ourselves out. And this is what I always tell my students. We don't have to figure out what needs to come through. We don't have to figure out who's going to come through. We just need to be really calm and relaxed and allow the spirit to take the lead, because it's their loved ones they want to communicate with, not you. You're just a end to a means, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they just have to communicate with through you. They don't want to, but this is what way it's got to be, right? And so I always tell people, you just never know. And some people get mad and will blame the medium. And this
Right.
is where I really feel like educating our clients before we get into a session with them is so
Mhm.
important because of what we see through, I'll say, the commercial side of mediumship, online, television, things like that. The view of how mediums work isn't actually how it works in real life, unedited and without camera crews and without scripts and all of that kind of stuff, right? We really have no control, and it's those in the world unseen that decide what comes through, what's going to be said, right? So I just say take a load off and enjoy it, and find out in real time with your client what spirit has to say. And if you can do that, you will always be blown away. Absolutely.
I love that. It's letting yourself off the hook because I tend to go, "What did I miss something? How did I miss that?" It was
Mm.
like that was her biggest the one thing she wanted to hear was from her father, and I'm like I said to her, "I feel him. I feel the spirit tingles all over my body. I can feel that he's here, but he's not saying a word." I said, "He's either ashamed, not talkative, maybe it's because she's studying mediumship, and so they already have this connection." I was like, "I don't know, but I'm getting nothing, like nothing, but I can feel him, which is so funny. Like, and so it's really interesting. And I always start by telling people, I don't get to choose who comes in, what order they come
Yeah.
in. We can try, but sometimes no one wants to speak. I had to give a guy his money back the other day because I got little teeny tiny things and then nothing. And he said, "Look, I'm actually a skeptic and but a friendly skeptic." He was there because
Hmm.
he wanted to believe. And so of course I was like, I'm putting pressure. Like I don't I don't want him to think I don't want him to go, "Yep, see, I knew it. I knew it. It's not real." But I got very little. And I think that might have been he was very kind, very loving, but he
Hmm.
just it was like I couldn't get anything. And he even said, "Well, I want to hear from this person." And nothing, nothing. Like, I
Yeah.
just said, "I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I can't read." And he said, "I had a reading the other day, and the medium couldn't read me then either." So I was like,
Funny thing, hey?
"Funny
Funny
thing." I
thing.
was like, "Okay, maybe it's not me," but it's still, you kinda
No.
wanna go, but if you're coming to me skeptical, I want to help you to believe, but you don't get the choice, and that's
No, you
yeah.
don't. And this is what I tell my students. Even if you have a skeptic, so I don't care if people are skeptics, but if you're a pessimist and you were out there to disprove me, save your money, sweetheart, and go to another medium. I don't have time for you. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I am here to help heal hearts and to inspire people. So you save your money, save your time. I wish you well, blessings, right? But I tell my students though, all of your expectations about wanting to be the best medium to help people, to bring through certain types of information, to bring through whoever they want to connect with, take all of that and leave that energy and those thoughts and that mindset outside of the reading. Because if you bring that energy into your reading, it creates tension, it
Yeah.
contracts your auric field, it hinders your ability to connect with the spirit. Really, we have to approach it with an openness of mind and heart and recognize and inform our clients that it's really much a experiential process and anything can happen. And I always tell my clients 90% of the time it works, 10% it doesn't. I can't guarantee anything. If it doesn't work in the first 10 minutes, I'll let you know and I'll happy to give you a refund.
That's great. And it's also
That's it.
validating to hear that, I think, because, I do tell them if I do tell them, I say, "Just so you know, if don't put," because I don't want the client to be thinking about, "Well, I paid good money for this." So I always like, "Hey, if nothing comes through, don't worry about it. Like, I got you. But let's just be open to the experience and open to what comes through." So spirit knows better than we do. And that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
the beauty in surrendering to spirit because I know I've lived a life where I'm very analytical and logical. And so, yes, it's like trust what they have to say, know that they know what you need to hear today, know that they know when you're ready to hear it, when you're not ready to hear it, and what you need to hear. So, it is such a I tattooed trust on my wrist to remind myself just,
Me too. Upside down. And then I got patience on the other wrist.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. I just to touchstone, remember, hey, all you don't have to do anything. You just have to show up and trust and let it flow. Just let it flow. There's no expectation. I always pray, please remove my ego. my doubt, my
Mhm.
self-doubt, my error, whatever kind of preconceived notions I have, let it all go and let me just be of service to the person in front of me in their highest and best good and in the highest and best good of the spirit world as we work for the spirit world. Um,
Mhm.
we'll talk more off camera, but because I have so many, I mean, it's so cool to be able to speak with other people that understand not only the business but the experience and what it's like to go through the world receiving messages from the other side and all of that stuff. But what just as a kind of in conclusion, what is it that you just want people to know?
That everybody is a medium. Everybody is a medium, regardless of their upbringing, their religion, their faith, their beliefs, even if they are skeptical or not. You are a medium, and mediumship is open to everybody. And people go, well, I don't want to be a medium. Well, everybody can feel, everybody can sense, everybody gets that time from time to time where they can feel something when they know something good is around the corner, or they feel like something's off. I feel like I shouldn't take that job opportunity, or when I'm driving to work today, I don't want to take, I want to take a different route today for whatever reason. And by following that natural instinct, that gut feeling, it has really aligned them with their soul's highest good. It's also protected them or saved them in some instances, right? So that natural ability that everybody has to feel is really how we communicate with the spirit. And often when we are having certain emotions come up, but they're not always our own, it's actually the spirit world nudging us, communicating with us, giving us a heads up, a download. And so be open to allowing the world of spirit to support you in your physical life and your spiritual path. And also, don't put limits on how the spirit world can support you. And as a medium, whether you're developing or doing this professionally, don't put limits on a limitless power. Don't put limits on what can be achieved in your mediumship, in your readings, and in your life, because the power and the presence of the spirit is limitless, it is eternal, and it is only bound by our capacity to surrender and allow that higher vibration of love to lead. Yeah.
Beautiful. And where can we I know that your website is mediumcourtneydawson.com. I'll have
Yeah.
that below. You teach, you give readings, anything else that you want to share about your services or things that are coming up for you, speaking events, platform, whatever it is.
Oh gosh, I'm always doing stuff. So I'm also the host of the Connected Spirit podcast.
Thank
It's
you.
streaming on all platforms. You can check that out. Everything's on my website. You can also check out in, I'll send you the link, Shannon.
Please do.
I've got a link for a free mediumship video training course for anybody who is a beginner and maybe is curious about connecting with a spirit guide or a loved one, or wants to get some skills so that they can read for other people. This is an incredible course. It's only an hour. Like, I've really made it easy, which is what my course is called, Ethical Mediumship Made Easy. And I've really taken out all the fluff and concentrated the information in such an easy, digestible way that anybody can develop their mediumistic powers of awareness. So Shannon will have the link in the show notes. And so check that out. I've got that going, and subscribe to my newsletter as well. I've got a weekly newsletter, The Connected Spirit, and I am sharing all kinds of stuff, blog posts, podcast updates, spiritual development tips, kind of my thoughts and my channeled message for the week, and then all kinds of goodies in there. So lots of freebies and stuff to support people on their spiritual path and in their development journey.
Thank you. I'm going to get on all of it. So just wait for it. Thank you again, Courtney Dawson, for taking the time to be here with me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you for